My name is Osamede, and here is my story. I was born in a small town in Nigeria, where dreams seemed distant and opportunities scarce. From a young age, I was determined to change my fate. I watched my mother toil day and night, struggling to provide for our family, and I promised myself that I would never live a life of hardship. I wanted to be a financial woman, someone who could stand tall in the corporate world. As I grew older, my ambition only intensified. I worked diligently in school, striving for excellence in everything I did. When I graduated from university, I was eager to make my mark. I landed a job at Edosa and Company, a burgeoning company that promised growth and opportunity. I knew that with hard work, I could help elevate the company to new heights. I met my boss, Edosa. He was not just a mentor but a man with vision and charisma. I admired his leadership style and commitment to the company. Edosa noticed my dedication and soon began to see me not just as an employee but as a potential partner in both business and life. One evening, after a long day of work, he took me out for dinner. As we shared laughter and dreams, I felt an undeniable connection. He proposed to me under the stars, promising that together we would build a life filled with success and happiness. I accepted, filled with excitement for our future. Soon, after our wedding, we were blessed with a baby boy, Edosa. As per African tradition, I took 3 months off work to care for my newborn. During this time, I fully immersed myself in motherhood. I watched Edosa grow, filled with pride as he reached each milestone. However, as the months passed, I felt the weight of my absence at Edosa and Company. I had poured so much of my time and happiness into my job that stepping away felt like a betrayal. After 3 months, I enrolled Edosa in daycare and returned to work, hoping to balance my roles as a mother and a career woman. The moment I returned to work, I was determined to make up for lost time. I put in extra hours, and slowly but surely, the company regained its former glory. My colleagues noticed the difference, and Edosa was thrilled with my performance. It felt good to be back in the game, juggling both work and family life. 2 years later, I gave birth to a baby girl named Ofure. The routine was similar to my first experience. I took 3 months off to nurse my newborn. However, this time, the company's productivity dropped significantly in my absence. Edosa realized just how much I contributed to the company, and it became clear that I was indeed the pillar holding everything together. After Ofure's birth, Edosa and I made a mutual decision that 2 children were enough for us. We wanted to concentrate on growing our business and creating a legacy. As our careers took off, we hired houseworkers and a nanny to take care of Edosa and Ofure. It was a practical solution, or so we thought. The years passed, Edosa and Ofure started school, but they barely saw us. By the time we returned from work, they were already asleep. Sometimes we left for work before they woke up. They grew accustomed to the idea that their nannies were their primary caregivers. As Edosa and Ofure spent more time with their nannies, they were exposed to influences that would haunt us later. The nannies were not always responsible, often neglecting their duties. Edosa and Ofure began to witness behavior that was both alarming and inappropriate. They thought what they saw was normal. During weekends, when we were at home, I could see Edosa and Ofure spending time together, forming a bond that was unsettling. They believed they were developing a close sibling relationship, but in reality, they were crossing boundaries that I could never have imagined. One day, while I was at work, I suddenly remembered that I had left something important at home. I decided to return. As I parked the car outside, I honked the horn, but no one came to the gate. I opened the small gate and rushed inside, calling for the nanny. Silence greeted me. When I entered our bedroom, I was greeted by a horrifying sight. The nanny and the gatekeeper were engaged in inappropriate acts in front of my children. I felt a rush of anger and disbelief. How had I allowed this to happen? I called the police, demanding that they arrest the gatekeeper and the nanny. After the police left with the nanny and the gatekeeper, I turned to my children, filled with guilt. I knelt beside Edosa and Ofure, tears streaming down my face. "I'm so sorry, my darlings. You shouldn't have had to see that." To my shock, they responded with confusion. "But Mama, this is what we grew up seeing. It's normal to us." My heart shattered. I realized that I had allowed my ambition to overshadow my role as a mother. I felt as if I had failed them. Nosa and I decided to hire new caregivers, hoping to repair the damage done. Yet, the trust had been broken, and our children were still vulnerable. Despite our attempts to create a better environment, the new nanny proved to be just as negligent. All of this was happening under our roof, but Edosa and Ofure didn't feel comfortable sharing their experiences with us. They were still too young to understand the complexities of our neglect. As time went on, the bond between Edosa and Ofure grew stronger. They began to emulate the behaviors they witnessed, believing it was normal. I could sense something was off, but I was too consumed with work to intervene. One day, Ofure came to me, her face pale and trembling. "I keep throwing up every morning." My heart raced. I quickly rushed her to the doctor, and after some tests, the doctor confirmed she was 3 months pregnant. 3 months pregnant, and I hadn't noticed. How could I have been so careless as a mother? When we got home, I sat Ofure down and asked her who was responsible. She whispered, "It was Edosa." At that moment, it felt like my whole world was falling apart. My heart dropped. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. How had this happened? I knew that their upbringing had left them vulnerable, but I never imagined it would come to this. Nosa and I were stunned. What could we do? Nosa suggested that we terminate the pregnancy, given the circumstances. The thought of aborting my daughter's child was horrifying, but we felt we had no other choice. Ofure underwent the procedure, and though it was painful for her, it was also a relief for Nosa and me. We tried to comfort ourselves, believing it was for the best. We thought separating the children might help, so we sent Ofure to a boarding school while Edosa stayed home. However, this separation only intensified their longing for each other. Edosa struggled without his sister, often moping around the house. Meanwhile, Ofure found it hard to concentrate on her studies, her mind constantly drifting back home. The pressure on both children grew unbearable. Finally, unable to see Edosa's despair, we decided to bring Ofure back home. I thought that our family could heal together. I tried to explain to them that what they had learned from their nannies was wrong, but I could see the confusion in their eyes. Despite our efforts to help them understand, Nosa and I remained preoccupied with our careers. It was an endless cycle of neglect. I could see the cracks forming in our family, but I felt powerless to fix it. Not long after Ofure returned home, the second tragedy struck. She came to me, trembling and crying. "Mama, I'm pregnant again." My heart sank. How could this happen again? I felt like I was losing control of my life, and my family. Nosa and I were filled with dread. Once again, we found ourselves making the painful decision to terminate the pregnancy. Ofure went through another abortion, and the weight of our choices began to crush me. As the months went by, Ofure's condition deteriorated. The emotional toll of the abortions weighed heavily on her, and I could see the light in her eyes fading. Edosa tried to support her, but he too was struggling with the repercussions of their upbringing. The cycle continued. Ofure got pregnant for the third time, and we went through the agonizing decision once more. With each procedure, I felt like I was losing my children a little more. How had I let my ambition destroy my family? When Ofure became pregnant for the fourth time, I knew we were on a dangerous path. Nosa was increasingly worried about the impact this was having on our family. We had tried to hold things together, but we were losing our grip. The final blow came when Ofure became pregnant for the fifth time. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. With this fifth pregnancy, I told my husband that I could no longer support the idea of getting another abortion. I said she should have the baby. But my husband insisted that it would bring shame to our family. During the abortion, something went horribly wrong, and Ofure lost her life. My world shattered in an instant. Edosa couldn't cope with the loss of his sister. I watched as he spiraled into despair. I felt utterly powerless. The children I had neglected, the family I had chosen to prioritize my career over, were now gone. Edosa took a poisonous substance in a fit of grief, leaving me utterly shattered. My son, my sweet boy, was gone too. The weight of my choices crashed down on me, and I was consumed by guilt. Nosa, my partner in this journey, was devastated. He had always been the strong one, but the loss of our children proved too much for him to bear. I watched helplessly as he slumped one evening, clutching his chest in despair. His high blood pressure had become fatal, and he was gone in an instant. In the wake of their deaths, I was left alone in a house that echoed with memories of laughter and love, now replaced by silence and sorrow. My ambitions felt meaningless in the shadow of my loss. The company I had once poured my heart into now felt like a prison. I wandered through the halls of our home, haunted by the moments I had missed, the choices I had made. I replayed the scenes of my children growing up, the times I had chosen walk over them, the times I had ignored their pleas for attention and care. Every corner of the house seemed to taunt me, reminding me of what I had lost. As the days turned into weeks, I began to reflect on my life. I had been so consumed by my ambition that I had failed to nurture the most important aspects of my life, which is my family. My heart ached for the time I could never get back, the moments I had taken for granted. I realized that my pursuit of success had cost me everything I truly cared about. In my isolation, I found solace in writing. I started to pen down my thoughts, the memories of Edosa and Ofure, the moments that defined our lives. Writing became a therapeutic outlet for my pain. I poured my heart onto the pages, recounting the joy of their laughter and the sweetness of their innocence. I knew I had to make amends, not just with my children but with myself. I decided to use my experience to help others, hoping that sharing my story would prevent someone else from making the same mistakes I had. I began volunteering at community centers, speaking to young parents about the importance of being present in their children's lives. I wanted to be a voice for those who felt lost in the hustle and bustle of life. I organized workshops on parenting, encouraging individuals to prioritize their families and find a balance between work and home. Each session was cathartic, allowing me to share my pain while hoping to inspire others to cherish their loved one. With each story I shared, I felt a little lighter. I was no longer just Osamede, the ambitious woman who lost everything. I was Osamede, a mother striving to honor her children's memory. My mission became my purpose. Through my outreach efforts, I met many incredible individuals who inspired me with their stories of resilience. I was reminded that healing takes time, but it is possible. Slowly, I started to rebuild my life. I learned to find joy in the little things, in the laughter of children at the community center and in the warmth of new friendships. The pain of losing Edosa and Ofure never left me, it became a part of who I was. I learned to live with it, to honor their memory by making a positive impact in the world around me. I surrounded myself with supportive friends and like-minded individuals who understood my journey.